Here we go.
John, you're standing too, aren't you?
Yeah.
My desk is in sitting mode. How did I not think of this?
Push the button. Make a change.
Push the button. I have to pick mine up.
Here we go. Lunch with Brad. I got a big production budget.
I like it.
Lunch with Brad.
Is this a sing-along?
Sing it, man. Sing it. All right, we're back. Episode 2 of Lunch with Brad. We survived the first episode, and now we're actually back again. So this thing might actually be working. We'll see, but I'm very excited. Very excited about this week's show. We got a lot of fun topics. I got a couple of my buddies on, but before we get into that, I'll just talk about the show for a minute. So Lunch with Brad is a bi-weekly live video podcast every other week right here on YouTube, or you can go to lunchwithbrad.com. It's my minimum viable podcast. So I don't have a Twitter. I don't have a Facebook. All you have to do to interact with the show is use the hashtag lunchwithbrad. Super simple. Hashtag it, tweet it, throw it on Facebook. I'll see it. Send us questions, comments, feedback, hate mail, whatever you want. Even if you want to be on the show, send me a shout out. We'll see what we can do to get you on. So we're talking tech, we're talking web, and we're talking really anything I want to talk about because this is my show. But those are the things I generally tend to talk about. Maybe a little bit of WordPress, but not a whole lot. We'll see. But with that, let's get into it. So I am joined by two of my good buddies out there in the different realm of, I don't know where I'm going with that, but two of my good friends, John Hawkins and Matt Danner. So guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Matt, kick us off.
Yeah, I'm Matt Danner. I work at iThemes. I am by far the most handsome Matt you've ever had on the show. Have you ever had a Matt before? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't count. So
yeah. So I appreciate that you made it official for me to be the best looking Matt on the show. Yeah, so I work at iThemes doing technology and operations over here. And that's the extent of my knowledge of technology is what I do here. So I'll be super interesting on this. If you want to talk about like hunting or fishing or being outside or not having screens in front of you, I know a lot about that.
We might go down that road. We'll see how the show takes us. You never quite know on this show. So, John, why don't you
hunting or fishing or being outside or not having screens?
Why
in front
is
of you?
that doing that? Okay.
Whoa.
I love live shows. Nothing wrong will ever go wrong.
Exactly the same thing to say as me. I want to talk to that guy. Who was that?
He sounds like a great guy. We're fixed. We're back. All right, John.
He also seemed pretty handsome. I'm not going to lie. What's up? I'm John Hawkins. You can find me pretty much anywhere at Vegas Geek. I work at Web Dev Studios. Depending on which week we're talking about, I do a whole bunch of stuff over there. So I am also glad to be on this podcast. I was supposed to be on the first one, but it keeps my level of always being the most times on Brad's podcast guest. So I'm now tied at 1 with anybody else who's already been on. So
John's my rock. Not to say you're my fallback, John, but you're always there in a pinch when I need you. And I do
hey Matt,
appreciate
the call
that.
Goes like this. Hey John, so-and-so couldn't make it. Yeah, what are you doing in an hour?
What you doing today? Hey, it always works out. We always have a good time. So I definitely glad to have you both on this special episode too. And for those watching, you might notice I got a little bit of a different view because I am using my new standing desk. I'm on week 2. With my standing desk, and I got to say, I really like it. I wish I'd done it a long time ago. Everyone kept saying, "Get a standing desk, get a standing desk. It's way better for you, way healthier." And I was kind of hesitant, but I got it, and it's been a pretty easy transition for me. You guys do standing desks?
I do, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell John does because he's moving back and forth.
You can sway, you can kind of dance a little bit, you know.
Yeah. I have the Veridesk, so it sits on top of my existing desk and goes up and down. And I really like it, especially first thing in the morning. It's really nice because I've been laying in bed all night. It's nice to not come and immediately sit down at a desk. First thing in the morning, it's great to get to work standing up for a little bit.
I had an old IKEA desk that I really liked. I bought like a nice desktop that I liked a lot, and so what I found was a desk that it was just a base, and then it's got like a little button. It's got like 2 buttons or 3, like 3 different positions that you could do. So I set one up for standing, one for sitting, and whenever I want, you just click the button, it just raises and lowers. And so for me, I try to, like, anytime I'm on a meeting, meetings are almost always standing, and if I get to about 50% of the day standing, I can tell a difference on how good I feel.
I feel more engaged, like you said, meetings, I think it's great. I definitely feel more engaged when I'm on meetings. I'm standing. I like to pace a lot. If I'm on a phone, a cell phone, basically anything not attached to my computer, I'm pacing. And sometimes I'm pacing with my laptop in my hand, doing a call that way. It looks super ridiculous. But so I don't have to pace as much, but it kind of gives me that, I don't know, that ability to stand and sway and a little bit of movement, which keeps it interesting. So I'm definitely enjoying it.
I know you got the mat, right? The fatigue mat. Do you have one of those?
Yep. I got a fatigue mat. I asked around because I had carpet, so I didn't know, and everyone said, "Nope, get a mat." And it does make a difference because the first 2 days I did not have the mat. And about I would say 4 or 5 hour mark, my legs and feet were very, very sore. The very next day I got the mat that evening. The very next day I used the mat all day, and I was up I think the entire day, about 8 hours standing. So big awesome difference. Definitely get the mat. I did the kind of Varidesk knockoff because I'm cheap, but same thing. I wish I got the one where you hit a button because I got a lot of stuff on this thing, and it's a workout. You bringing it up and down, which is maybe a good thing because once I bring it up, I don't want to like be going up and down with it all day. So I bring it up and I stay up pretty much all day. So
the Varidesk,
never thought about it. Do it.
Yeah. The Varidesk has a great spring assist to get it up, but that doesn't mean that I don't knock my coffee off of it almost every time that I bring it up.
Yeah, I have like 2 30-inch monitors. I have my mic with the boom arm on it. I'm trying to keep it minimal what's on there, but even just those 3 things are extremely heavy. So, but I'm surviving. So with that, guys, let's get into it because we got a lot to talk about.
Let's do it.
There it is. I'm going to Ship Bell this week, the Ship Bell for the topics. Man, Falcon Heavy. Did you guys watch the Falcon Heavy launch? We mentioned on the podcast last week because it happened, or 2 weeks ago, and it happened a few days after. But did you guys watch this live?
Yes.
I was riveted. I called in the wife and the kids. I'm like, you got to see this. This is going to be historic.
Yeah. It was. Crap. I mean, a couple things that come to mind. One, it was amazing to watch. I've watched a few SpaceX launches over the past few years, and they're all pretty neat. I really like it because they really engage with the audience. They're sharing a lot of real-time stats and data and analytics. It's all on YouTube. It's very high tech, and it feels like it's very like now. We're not on the, older kind of like, let's get around the TV at 8 o'clock and watch the shuttle launch. It's but this one was definitely special, right? This one had a much different feeling than the last launches. One, obviously, just Falcon Heavy is a beast of a rocket. It doubles the capacity size of the next closest rocket out there, so it's not just a minor difference; it's massive. So to see something that big and that massive just take off into the sky like it did is pretty amazing. And then, I mean, so many different parts of this launch really stood out. The twin boosters coming down, a synchronized landing, which I had no idea was even going to happen. Like the synchronized part, I knew they were going to land. When they flipped to that camera view, I mean, it just absolutely blew my mind. I was like, this is literally this is the future. This is the future we've been thinking about and talking about for years. We kept saying, where's the flying cars and this is it. Like we're watching it now and it's starting to feel like we're in the future.
The thing that I found the most interesting, I mean, the twin boosters landing was just like that was just so amazing. But the thing that I had learned during the process of this one was I didn't realize that one of the biggest kind of drawbacks or limitations in rocketry had to basically just do with the amount of weight that the rockets could carry. And that's what the Falcon Heavy just is so much bigger and can push and pull so much more weight that it makes for like what I think they were talking about this other one that they were going to launch and how they have to basically like these other satellites, they have to like origami fold them up to get them into a rocket that will be able to use them as payload to shoot them up there. And then once they get up there, then they have to like do all this crazy
unfold it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the
Blew my
payload
mind.
capacity for the Falcon Heavy is about 140,000 pounds. The next closest is about 50,000 pounds. So just, I mean, right there, you can see the comparison and overall size. This thing is literally Falcon Heavy is a great name for it, because it was just, I mean, and then I think the last part that really stood out is obviously the fact that there's a Tesla floating around in space. Sure. And, you know, the images coming off this thing and the way they position the cameras, these images are now, they're iconic for our generation, right? That image of the, what do they call him? Starman, you know, side view with Earth in the background. Like, that is, a lot of people were kind of comparing that to the image when we were on the moon, and the first time they sent an image back showing the Earth from the moon's perspective. That iconic image that we all saw growing up, like, this is our generation's comparison to that. And it's just, it was crazy to see this car floating around in space. They had a live stream of the car itself on YouTube. You could watch it as it did a few rotations around the Earth. I'm not sure if that's still going, because I know it's kind of headed off. But just absolutely amazing. And it's really cool to see some excitement around space. You know, I think in the 80s, I feel like it was there a little bit, but it really kind of just died out. You know, it just hasn't been that exciting. So this, I feel like, is starting to re-energize that, you know, the space and how cool it is. And with that, hopefully we'll become more pioneers that want to kind of push the boundaries and do even cooler things. So,
yeah. Do either of you guys follow? Do either of you guys follow Smarter Every Day? He does a YouTube show. Well, first of all, you should check out Smarter Every Day. He does fantastic content on YouTube, but he got a special media pass for the launch. And so he actually got to go up on the roof of whatever it is down there, the tallest single story building in the world. And he got to be one of the few media people that were up there, and he got to do all of his video from up there. And he does this, he has a separate YouTube channel. There's fancy words, and words are hard, but basically he has these microphones that go on his ears, so he can give you 360-degree audio that if you listen to in good headphones, it's insanely immersive. And so he gave this like sound view of what it was like to be there for the launch. It was so cool. You got to check out that YouTube video. The launch was amazing. Like you know, I of course had my headphones turned all the way up because I wanted it to be loud and I wanted to feel it. And so the launch was really cool. But when the twin boosters come back down and land, so they each gave off 3 sonic booms, and the sonic booms are in stereo in this mic setup that he has. And his explanation of how there were actually 10 sonic booms off of 2 rockets that only gave off 3. It's a really cool video. And watching it live, there was a lot of really cool stuff live, but so far my favorite Falcon Heavy experience has been rewatching his video. So check it out.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that. I definitely need to look that up. I do have the countdown.
10, 9.
I mean,
Side booster ignition. 6, 5.
like you start to feel like you start to get excited. Smoke's coming out. It's getting ready to go, and then you're like, please don't explode.
Right.
And boom.
Speaking of exploding, though, the 3rd booster that came back apparently hit it about 300 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's never going to end well.
I was wondering if it took out the landing pad, the autonomous.
I think it hit the water. I think I heard it hit the water.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Without that booster igniting, it couldn't guide itself in, so it ended up hitting the water and
slammed into the water. So, I mean, SpaceX is really changing just space exploration in general and everything we're doing in space. And I saw an interesting quote in one of the articles I was reading about. If you think about the overall cost savings with what they're doing here, imagine an airline where every time a plane took a flight, it was a one-way trip. And then that plane crashed, and people jumped out with parachutes, and the plane crashed on the ground, and that was it. And they're like, that was the business of rockets up until a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So when you put it in perspective like that, you can just see the amount of overall money that they're going to be saving, bring these costs down, which means we can do more and do this more often. So and speaking of more often, there's a SpaceX launch this weekend. They're sending up a Falcon 9. It's slotted to go up on Saturday, the 17th. weather permitting. But what's interesting about this, obviously a smaller rocket than Falcon Heavy. But what's really interesting about this is the payload. So, we talked about Falcon Heavy was a test run, right? They basically wanted to see if it would perform and how it performed. They sent up a Tesla. This Falcon 9 is actually sending up a couple different satellites, but the two satellites that are really piqued my interest are Elon Musk's new Starlink test satellite. So basically, he has this grand vision of sending up about 12,000 internet satellites across the entire globe, and that's 12,000 is actually more spacecraft than is currently in orbit around Earth. So he wants to actually put up more than what's already out there. But just imagine a grid of satellites streaming or sending high speed, like gigabit, per second internet to every single inch of the Earth. And these are the first two kind of test satellites. This is a very tight-lipped project. He's mentioned about it, kind of the larger goals, but no real current status updates up until we found out these are going up in the air. So by all accounts, it sounds like they are moving forward, and I think their goal is to have these satellites in orbit by 2024 at an estimated cost around $10 billion. But, I mean, if you think about this, like global high-speed internet, that is an absolute game changer in the terms of just about everything, in terms of how we interact with each other, how we interact with the internet, apps, services, everything. It's a huge game changer. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think that it answers a question that I've had for a long time, which is once the machines take over, how will we black out the sun like they did in the Matrix? And having 12,000 extra satellites up there and knowing we can take that kind of payload up there, I think will be a big factor in how we black out the sun later in life.
we do need to start thinking about how we don't end our own humanity with this, but it's a good thought. I hadn't put that perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, for us here, like in the United States, like we have access to anything we want. So high-speed internet, sure, no problem. Just make a phone call, you get it. But in parts of the world where that is just not the case, I mean, it is game changer. That's the exact right thing. I mean, it's unbelievable that we'll just blanket the entire Earth with it. No problem.
And I'm thinking, in this, for like you said, John, most people in the U.S. have access. Most people, not everybody, have access to high-speed internet for a reasonable price. We could obviously nitpick that statement apart, but what is interesting from my perspective, especially around the talk of net neutrality, is someone like Elon Musk pushing stuff like this. It seems like he was really doing things to really drive humanity in the right direction and break boundaries and always thinking outside the box. Does this kind of help eliminate some of the concerns? Because if he, releases this whole gigabit internet for a reasonable price globally, and basically says, I don't care what you do with it, do whatever you want with it, it's your internet. Net neutrality is almost a non-issue at that point, because now you have an option to get away from it if your ISP or internet provider is, slowing down traffic for certain services.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. Net neutrality is, I think that's going to be kind of like our big sticking point for the next, 5-10 years, where it's just always fighting that battle. Because, we used to talk about it like in the entertainment business, where, you can't have only ABC and CBS owning everything, right? I just picked two, but if they own everything, then those are the only two voices that you hear. And same thing, you just kind of can't let somebody else take all of that over. I mean, it just, where does that leave us? I mean, it's competition is a good thing for consumers, right? I mean, I live in Philadelphia. This is Comcast's headquartered in Philadelphia. For years, that was the only option for high-speed internet. About, 4 or 5 years ago, Verizon rolled into town and started, wiring up Fios. So now a good majority of Philly and the surrounding suburbs have the option of both. And as soon as that happened, guess what? Prices came down, package speeds went up. I have literally about every 2 to 3 years switched back and forth because I'm only pulling internet. I don't do cable. So it's a pretty easy switch for me. But honestly, it'll be, guess what? You're going to double my cost because I've been a customer for 2 or 3 years. Cool. I'll go talk to the other company and see if they want to have me back. And guess what? They always do. So They brought
I
they brought CenturyLink here to Vegas a few years back, and I signed up for it, and then tried switching it. I think I used it for 24 hours before I told them that their service sucked, and so yeah, it's like Cox Cable's for internet is the only game in town here.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Same here. We have AT&T does their Uverse thing here, but even that, it's really pocketed in our area.
Yeah.
We're a Cox Communications town, and but I think even more than there's the competition, but there's something that's easy for us to underestimate is because we have such access to it. But internet access is education and opportunity so far beyond what we even imagine because we take it for granted. Yep. My trite example that I use, which is so minuscule, but a few years ago I rebuilt the carburetor on an old motorcycle by pulling up YouTube videos of it. And that's a silly example, but we can learn anything we want to learn. We can
really
push the boundaries of anything we want to push the boundaries because we've got internet access. And you go someplace that doesn't have internet access, and access to that education is behind locked doors, or maybe those doors don't even exist. And you start putting this global internet out. You start putting, and the education and opportunities that you're opening it up. It's hard to even imagine right now what it could do for a lot of places outside of the United States.
Yeah, and Elon Musk has even made statements that certain parts of the world it will actually be free. So areas that they obviously wouldn't be able to pay for that internet,
right.
He still wants them to have internet, and it will be free to them. So, that's a great point. You can imagine areas of the world where they have trouble getting access to clean water. Well, there's probably hundreds or thousands of videos on YouTube on how to make a simple homemade water filter.
Yeah. Yep.
You're right. I hadn't really thought about that, but it's exciting. It sounds like 2024 sounds like a ways off, but it's really not. We're talking 6 years that this could be live, and that's when it's to be completed. So I would imagine things start turning on before that. So definitely going to keep an eye on that one. But again, exciting times. I'm sure we'll be talking more about SpaceX and satellite powered internet and pretty much anything Elon Musk is doing, because it's freaking cool, man. That guy just has a ton of money, and he's just such a big thinker. It's just neat to see what they're always rolling out with.
A ton of money, but actually putting his money to use in a way that is not just self-serving. And that is, Can I give that guy a high five?
I saw
that guy tacos.
A thing on the internet, so it must have been fact, but it basically said after he got his big payout from PayPal, he put $100 million into SpaceX. I think he said something like 50 or 60 million into Tesla, and then like 20 million into a solar company. And it was literally everything he got from the buyout. He made the joke that he had to borrow money for rent. I'm sure he didn't have to, but it just went. He got all this money. It would have been easy enough to just retire and live, the luxury life on a private island somewhere. But he wasn't done, and he wanted to think about what's next and what can we do to really change things up. So he is 100% focused on getting to Mars. All the money that is going to be coming in from this internet service is going to funnel back into that project. Which is makes it even more. I just want to throw money on it, right? Because the sooner we can get to Mars, the better. So, really, really cool stuff. So let's move on to something that's not so cool. Facebook. Is Facebook cool anymore? I don't know. I think it's just more of a habit at this point for most people. But Facebook, TechCrunch had an article, and they noticed that Facebook's rolled out a little thing called Protect. This is starting to show up on mobile apps. It looks like it's only on iOS right now. I checked. I'm on Android. I checked. I'm not seeing it, but essentially it is a Facebook VPN. So they bought an Israeli company back in 2013 called Onovo Protect, and it looks like they have now started to roll out what is a Facebook VPN. The problem is, as Gizmodo so elegantly states it, Facebook is not a privacy company. It's Big Brother on PCP. And I think that is a great way to kind of describe it. So if you're not familiar, VPN is basically you log in, to your internet provider just like you normally would. You're on the internet, then you connect your VPN, and it basically routes all your traffic through that VPN server, and essentially encrypts it. So basically everything you're doing on the internet is encrypted, meaning your ISP and anyone out there that is actually seeing the traffic leave your computer doesn't actually know what you're doing. It's obviously great for privacy. It's great when you're on like public internet. Some would say it's great for doing illegal things. There's just a lot of really good cases that aren't illegal of why VPNs are awesome. I use one. I'm sure you guys use them. But now the problem with this Facebook VPN is obviously they're not just doing it to be nice guys and protect your privacy. They're actually monitoring all your traffic and using that data, in who knows what ways. But they've been caught doing it and tracking Snapchat usage, which is a huge competitor of Facebook and Instagram now. Yeah. This is shady, right, guys? How shady is this?
Well, I think we should just change the name from Onovo to just Oh No.
Oh no, Vo.
Yeah. Facebook habit for sure. It's one of those things. I feel like I use Facebook more these days for like Facebook login to like every friggin' site that I use, right? Half of them now have a Facebook login.
They gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's.
I do the same thing. I'm lazy.
Yeah, and I gave up. I gave up Facebook for most of the month of January, and it was glorious, by the way. But I can't just go delete the app off my phone because of all the logins. Facebook is kind of stuck. I feel like I'm stuck with it. The thought of using Facebook as a VPN, I die inside just a little bit. Like that's scary, man. Like how many times have somebody was just joking about it yesterday. Like I thought of something and then it showed up as an ad on Facebook.
Yes. We have a joke in our office here that we'll at lunch, we'll watch everybody. I want you guys to watch your Facebook later this afternoon, but I'm just looking for a high quality, affordable mattress. And if only I could find a high quality, affordable mattress that would be shipped to my door. Now, all you guys check Facebook this afternoon, and I can tell you what ads are going to be in your Facebook because you heard me say this.
Scary.
Yes. Yeah.
It's scary.
It's interesting to talk about this immediately after talking about Elon Musk. And not that I'm trying to be an Elon Musk fanboy or a Facebook downer, but I feel like Facebook has a reputation for trying to spin the new technology and the new things they're doing. They love to spin it as how good it is for you, the consumer, when at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is make far more money from you, which is, Elon Musk wants to make money. And I don't fault him for it, but I feel like he's trying to make this legacy of moving humanity forward, and Facebook is trying to appear that they're making a legacy of moving humanity forward while finding a way to sell advertisers more information. And a VPN is quite literally the most terrifying thing that they could ever try to do.
Yeah, and I think the scary, sad part is everybody's on Facebook, right? And we're obviously more of the tech mind, so we know to look out for this stuff, but the good majority of Facebook users don't. Our parents, our grandparents, just people that aren't in the tech space, and Facebook wants to protect me. Okay, I need to be protected, right? So they trust Facebook. Unfortunately, so it is our kind of duty to help educate people. I think, I don't know. I have a feeling. I don't know if this is going to last or what, but it seems like an odd. It's a smart move for Facebook, obviously, but there's already a lot of backlash around it, of what they're trying to do. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they stay the course, or if they pivot. And
I don't know if you read the entire Gizmodo article, but my favorite line in it is, to put it another way, Onovo is corporate spyware.
Yep. It is exactly what that is. So if you are interested in a VPN, there's a number of them out there. I use private internet access. It's one that's generally highly recommended by most people. So check it out. Basically, just like the article says, there's tens of thousands to choose from. The good ones cost money. If you're using a free VPN, guess what? You're the product.
Somebody is making money.
They have to make money, right? So they're making money off whatever it is you're doing, whatever they're tracking, however they're selling that data. So if you're serious about it, go and pay. I think private internet access is like $45 or $50 a year.
Yeah, I use ExpressVPN, and it has a desktop application, and there's also an iOS app, and it's so simple to use. Not using it just seems stupid at this point. And again, it's like $50 a year.
Yeah, ExpressVPN's awesome. But yeah, it's one of those things that you're paying whether you know it or not. If you're being honest with yourself, paying with cash is the least expensive way you could pay for it. So
great.
Just
if you don't know what the product is, you are the product, right? So
Yes.
just keep that in mind on any,
Yeah,
any
as soon
service
as
or
soon
website.
as you wonder, I wonder how these guys are making money.
Yeah.
Like, if you have to ask that question,
Anytime someone, have you tried this or tried that? The new app that's all the hype right now is the HQ Trivia. You guys played that at
I was
all?
just thinking about that.
And it's literally a twice a day trivia game. You get on there. I forget how many questions there are, but as soon as you miss one, you're out. And basically every game they give out $2,500. So whoever makes it to the end splits the money. So I'm like, okay, they're giving out about $5,000 a day. How are they making money?
7 days a week.
As soon as someone told me that, I'm like, I asked them, how are they making money? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, are there ads? No,
not yet. But
how are they making money?
yeah,
They know
question.
so much about you based on how you answer those questions. I guarantee you they're building
profiles. Yeah.
And there's,
it is huge.
data.
I hopped on it last night and it was like 1.1 million people on the game.
Yeah.
oh,
It's like, that's not a small number of people on a live trivia game. So
1.1 million people twice a day, 7 days a week, answering questions. If you think they're not analyzing that data to do something with it, I'm not saying I know what it is, but that's big data.
yeah. All right. Facebook VPN. We're going with that. No. No, as John says. Oh man. Have you guys been watching the Olympics?
Yes.
glued to it, man.
Are the Olympics not? I mean, I get excited every time the Olympics are on. There's just something about the Olympics and the music and the games and the countries, and it is. I don't know. It's exciting, and what really has me jazzed up, obviously, is the technology side of the Olympics. So I was doing a little bit of research, and obviously hearing them talk about it while they're there. But South Korea, as most people probably know, is literally like one of the biggest technology hubs countries in the world. Samsung, LG, some massive technology companies are based there. And to be expected, they are pushing the envelope on the technology side. So I found a fun list of different things they're doing. Some of the stuff I didn't even realize they were doing. And there's a couple that stand out, but so let's see. A few of these are next level viewing experience. So everything's being broadcast in ultra high def. Now this is in South Korea, which is 4 times higher than standard HD. They're also doing more widespread VR integration. So a lot of 360-degree virtual reality cameras around some of the events. So you can go online and check those out, which are interesting. They're doing first-person perspective. They're doing time slicing so they can capture basically athletes like mid-motion, think like Matrix style, pause on a live, event and then spin the camera in real time type stuff. First-person perspective for racing. I saw some speed skating where they had cameras on their helmets. So you're literally in the middle of a speed skating session to see how fast they're going.
They did it for skeleton yesterday.
Oh, God. That has to be terrifying.
And I mean, I watched the run live, and I never saw a camera on this guy's helmet. Like, there's no, everything is aerodynamics in skeleton. And then all of a sudden they switched to a helmet view, and I was like, where is there a high-def camera in that guy's tiny little helmet? And I know it's not in the suit because I've seen
a little drone. Didn't you see a little drone flying above his head?
Yeah, it just follows him.
The nano drone. Yeah, they're doing ghost skier technologies. They can overlay, various runs on top of live runs and do real-time analytics against it in terms of differences in times and speeds and things like that. Holograms. They're actually doing holograms. I haven't seen this yet, but basically you can project athletes' interviews from the slopes right into your living room. I need to do a little bit more research on that, but apparently they're doing this. That sounds weird. But the one that really piqued my interest is this is the first real large mass scale rollout and usage of 5G, which is the next generation, mobile network. Obviously, we're all familiar with 4G and 3G prior to that. Now 4G LTE. 5G is the next one, and they have rolled out a massive 5G network for the Olympics. And I was doing some research on this, and I had no idea how much faster 5G is than what we're used to. It's about 1,000 times faster than the current 4G LTE speed. So we talk about global, internet access from satellites, but here we're talking about your mobile devices. They're saying you can download an 800 megabyte movie in 1 second. 800 megs, 1 second on 5G. So imagine that on your phone.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, this is we talk about game changers from a mobile space. This is it. And the goal of this being so that they can do more kind of VR hologram services, ultra high def streaming services. What do you think, guys? They're talking about rolling this out in 2020.
I'll take
in the states, and a couple Verizon. I think AT&T just announced that they have actively started building some infrastructure here in the States. So it's coming, but it is absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, AT&T will ruin it, and then then it'll go to Google Fi, and it'll be awesome, but we won't be able to use a cool phone with it. So yeah, sounds great, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, they start rolling this out, and then it's like, okay, well, between this and the satellites, maybe you don't even need that, assuming the prices and bandwidth caps kind of go out of the way. Maybe you can just survive off 5G.
Can we stop worrying about website page speed at that point?
It's funny because I always, I equate bandwidth nowadays to hard drive space, about 10 to 15 years ago, when we were always like, oh man, I remember around 2001 or 2, there's all these rumors that the first 1 gigabyte hard drive, was coming out, and it came out, and then 2 gigs, and then, and it just kept going up. And now, I mean, unless you're into like some serious video production or, art or, graphic files, for the most part, you don't have to even think about hard drive space. Like I literally don't think about my hard drive space at all. And I have so much stuff in the cloud too. So, we don't think about it. Right. And I cannot wait until we get to that point with bandwidth where we just don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's not even part of the conversation.
We cut the cord a while back. We're back on cable now, but that's a different story. But we were always constantly like fighting with how much downloadable stuff we could do, even at the house, and running into those like kind of 10 gigabyte or 100 gigabyte or whatever 2 terabyte limits every time. You talk about downloading an 800 megabyte movie in a second. Like I get the other side of, oh God, how much is that going to cost me? Like if my kids
5
can
seconds,
download
your
that
max.
much stuff, oh shit, now I'm broke. So like, what does this do to my bill? Oh God.
Yeah, I like that. I also like that we're talking about bandwidth while we're on a 3-person HD video call. The up and down that we're using right now. A few years ago, this kind of up and down did not exist. No. Like, I mean, I can see everything on Brad's desk back there. Like, this is ridiculous.
Don't look, it's a little messy.
Well, sure.
You're right. And it wasn't that long ago. Literally a couple of years ago, this would not work. I mean, even when Skype was probably the first one to really kind of take hold of where people were actually using it more often. But, this is pre-FaceTime. This is obviously Zoom and other services, pre-live streaming on YouTube. Everything had to be uploaded manually. I mean, I'm a cord cutter. My wife's upstairs. The TV's on. It's all going through the internet. I have Zoom cameras that are constantly recording, going right to the internet. I mean, my house uses a lot of bandwidth. My phone as well, but luckily I'm usually at home, so I don't have to tap into that. But to your point, John, I think my expectation, I would certainly hope so, when we get to 5G, they can't, I mean, how could you have limits? How could you say, here's the fastest network ever in the world, you can download almost a gigabyte movie in a second, but you only get 100 gigs a month. So watch how many movies you download. Like this. I don't know how they could actually make that, how they could sell it.
How did you use this up in under 2 minutes?
I swear it was Netflix, man. It was Netflix, so it's exciting, though. I'm glad to see it's coming. I'm glad to see it's legit, too. One of the concerns I have with things like this is and I feel like a couple of years ago, I heard a commercial about someone was starting to talk about 5G, and I'm like, please don't, commercialize this. Like when it's true 5G, you can talk about it, but until it's true 5G, I don't want to hear about your grass-fed beef that, or, Angus beef or whatever marketing terms you want to use that at some point meant something. And now since everybody uses it, it's like, well, that doesn't really mean anything anymore. Right. So, but it's exciting. And the fact that they have done this in a large scale setting, this is starting to prove the effectiveness and that it looks like it's ready to start rolling out, officially. So
free range grass-fed internet, guys. I can't wait.
I want the organic kind, please.
All right. Actually, I gotta jump us back to the Olympic for just a second, and this maybe not be necessarily technical, but do you guys become armchair experts in sports that you watch once every 4 years, like within about 3 minutes?
Of course.
Oh,
I'm like the curling expert. I mean, that's the great. Like, what are you doing? Sweep faster.
So curling is a perfect example. So I am fascinated by curling. I have been for like the past 2 Olympics, but I've maybe watched 3 minutes of curling when it's not during the Olympics. But what fascinates me most about curling is like the the strategy around it. Like, okay, I know I want to put this stone in this spot and I want to bounce it off of that thing. But what people may fail to realize is that that's somebody throwing a 40-pound stone from 150 feet away on friggin' ice, dude, and landing it within millimeters of where they planned on. Like, it's just fascinating. But yeah, I do. I'm watching luge the other day, and the guy's coming down, and I'm like, oh, he just totally blew his line there going into corner 9. Like, who the hell am I?
That's the best thing about the Olympics, right? Like, you don't have to follow it like religiously, during the off season, if you will, the four years in between. And it, I look at it like, like March Madness, NCAA basketball too. Like, I'm not a big college hoops guy, but I love me some March Madness.
They play outside of March.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I hear things about the local teams like Villanova and stuff, but I'm not really following it closely. And then once March hits, man, I'm like glued to it, watching who's winning, who's playing. Yeah, I got a bunch of different leagues going. I think that's part of the fun, and I'm glad again why it's I love the fact that it's every 2 years now that you get a Olympics rather than both in the 4-year span. You guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
That's the beauty of the Olympics, man. We can all gather around and critique sports that we really know nothing about.
So, my other, besides being an armchair expert, which I thought was obvious that I am, is I will always be patriotic. But I get extra patriotic during the Olympics. Like my wife and I were in this outdoor store and they had all of the North Face stuff that says USA across the front. And suddenly every jacket I buy has to say USA. And it's like, I've never, outside of an Olympic year, went to the store looking for something with huge USA written across it. But suddenly, like, I need stars and stripes on my wardrobe.
That's like a good competition to bring a country together and just screw every other country. We're gonna kick your ass.
Yeah, right.
I love it. Olympics are great. So it's still going. They got another good week plus left. So it's been pretty exciting so far. U.S. brought home a few gold medals. Snowboarding was really great. If you guys, I'm sure you watched that.
Yeah.
But we're gonna stay glued to it. So. I got one more quick topic I want to touch on. So this is episode 2 of Lunch with Brad, and you guys are podcasters. You've had your own podcast. You've been on a number of podcasts. I need some advice. I think one of the hardest things about podcasting is keeping it going and sticking to it and not falling off after episode 6, Matt. So what advice can you give to me to make sure that as seasoned podcasters, to make sure that this show and anyone else running a podcast can keep moving forward?
I have a little thought that is, you right before the episode started today, you sent out a really awesome kind of like email that was like, hey, you're going to be on the show. Here's this information. Here's that information. I'm
nothing if not professional, John. I mean, you should know that.
I've always said that about you.
But I don't know. That really felt like it was one of those things where I was like, holy shit, if I had that, I think my podcast might still be going on, because it felt like something that you kind of had as a canned response in Google that you could just throw in there.
And full disclosure, you said, hey, this is great. I'm going to steal this next time I do a show. Yeah, I stole it from Bob WP. So thanks, Bob.
Nice. Thanks, Bob.
So I feel like it's a little bit ironic for you to ask the two of us for longevity on a podcast.
I'm only asking because you've started and stopped a little bit, and you've had longer shows, so I'm just teasing.
If you want to know how to shit the bed on a podcast, you've got the right. No, but two things that I think that you're doing really well with it is, A, you're doing it live. We joked before this episode started that while John and I both may have podcasts that ended on episode 6, we both literally have 3 episodes done in the can that haven't been released for whatever reason. It's just sitting there. It's on a hard drive, which, since I don't have to worry about hard drive space anymore, I'll just leave it there.
Forever.
So one thing is doing it live, you're pushing publish right away. And I think that's killer. And the other thing that I think people mess up with on a podcast is, and that I know I've messed up on personally, is not having it on a regular schedule, saying like, this is going to come out when it comes out. When I do a new episode, it'll come out. And the problem with that is that things get busy and there's no way to come back to it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And saying that you're going to do this every 2 weeks. Well, now you've got a deadline, and we all work better under a deadline. And To me, those were probably the two things that if I could go back and do the Leader.team podcast over again, that's things I'd want to be a little better about. And now I'm going to go edit or finish up those last 3 episodes and get them released because I got
press publish.
So go to Leader.team and check out the latest episode.
See, I like to just say that, season 1 of the Hawk Talk podcast was awesome. 16 episodes. Season 1 ended back in 2015. I get it.
Right.
You pulling like a Will and Grace, they're going to bring you back, after 3 or 4 years off air. And, John's back. Season 2.
Season 2. Here we go. Yeah.
But Will and Grace came back so well. The bar has been set.
Yeah, I'm sure Hawk Talk podcast will just blow that right out of the.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's having a set schedule, and I think you're already doing a couple of things really well. Like just going in and having those topics. I know that you use a great bookmarking tool that I also use because of you, and it looks like you're probably just going in there and just. Every time you see something, you're just tagging it, and throwing it on a list.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly. I've done. This is my 3rd kind of official podcast that I've been a host on or hosted, and the last 2 have been 100 or more each run, right? So they went for a while, and I kind of took the pain points from those when I put this together. One of them was weekly. Weekly is very hard. To do, because just getting everything coordinated. And John, we're joking about how I always last you at the last minute because it was so hard to schedule out a month or 2
totally
to have people on the show. And, now I have a 2-year-old son. So I was being very realistic with my schedule. I was like, I think every 2 weeks is great. It also spans a longer period for interesting topics to come up to be discussed. You're not always kind of like, oh man, there's just not as much to talk about this week. And the live part. That's why I love live. We did Dradcast live, and it's great because, once you hit stop recording, it's out there. And honestly, YouTube gives you some pretty cool tools that you can do a little bit of slicing and dicing if you need to, which I need to get better at. Do a little trimming at the beginning, maybe a little trimming at the end. Really basic stuff, but generally that's all you need. And I like it a little rough around the edges. I don't know. I hope everyone else does, but that's some good advice. So definitely get those episodes out. I'm going to be looking for that. Matt, John, get those off the floor. Get them out the door.
I'm on it.
There you go, guys. So keep it live. Keep it consistent. Keep it realistic.
I came to a podcast and went away with to-dos. How does that work?
Dang it.
We'll be checking back in 2 weeks, John. So
son of a.
With that, I would say it's about time to wrap up. And I actually think I'm going to have to make an adjustment. I keep saying the show's going to be about 30 minutes. At this point, I'm becoming very realistic. It's never going to be 30 minutes. It's just not going to happen because I have fun people on the show. I have friends on the show, and we could easily talk for a long time about any one of these topics. So I think we might make it more officially about 45 minutes. We'll see. So, but with that, I say let's go ahead and wrap this puppy up. Guys, I'll go around the horn here and tell people where they can find you online and websites, Twitter, Snapchat. You Snapchatting over there. Where can they find you at, John?
Vegas Geek, vegasgeek.com, or pretty much any social platform, Vegas Geek. And now that I just moved, I actually live in Las Vegas rather than Henderson, so it's official.
So you always feel a little bit guilty when you used to say I'm from Vegas, because I get that sometimes. I'm like, I'm from Philly, and really I'm in a suburb.
Right, exactly.
But if I say Glenside, I mean, then I have to explain like I'm from Philly, like close enough.
Exactly.
So I should go unfollow Henderson Geek.
Yeah, that guy. That guy's a douche.
That guy sucks. Where can people find you at, Matt?
I'm Matt Danner on almost everything. I probably use Instagram more than I use anything else, but I think there's a Twitter account that I still run. But mostly on Instagram, and only if you like seeing people shoot bows and arrows.
Get back to the woodworking, dude. Get back to the woodworking.
It's fun to watch, especially the slow-mo stuff when you're doing the bow. I think it's really cool to see. Even in slow-mo, that thing is flying, which is you're not moving very fast, but the bow and the arrow sure is. So cool stuff. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. So if you're tuning in, check out lunchwithbrad.com. Hashtag lunchwithbrad. We'll be back in 2 weeks on March 1st, Thursday, 12 Eastern. If it's Thursday every other week, it's Lunch with Brad.
It's Thursday, but not next Thursday.
It's Lunch with Brad. Lunch with Brad. Oh, you know you want to sing that. Brad. Nobody said dance.
With
Lunch with Brad.
I was off.
You're out.